Well, I set the... Thank you for coming. My goodness, this is an incredible crowd. I was worried with the snow this morning that nobody was going to come, but you being authentic Russians, most of you. It is a great honor to introduce you to our guest this afternoon. I'm going to give you some basics from her biography, and then she herself will tell you, obviously, a lot more about her amazing work and amazing life. This is Miss Suni Williams. She graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy with a Bachelor's of Science in Physical Science, and then became a helicopter pilot and served in the Mediterranean, Red Sea, and Persian Gulf. In 1992, she was the officer in charge of a detachment sent to Miami for Hurricane Andrew relief operations on board the USS Sylvania. Miss Williams has logged over 3,000 flight hours in more than 30 different aircraft. She was awarded the Navy Commendation Medal, 2 of them, as I understand, the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal, Humanitarian Service Medal, and various other service awards. Ms. Williams was selected by NASA for the Astronaut program in 1998, and after a period of training and evaluation, she traveled to Moscow to work with the Russian Space Agency on the contribution to the International Space Station, to the Mir station. Her first launch into space was in December 2006 on board the shuttle Discovery as part of the 14th expedition. She remained in space for over 195 days until April 26, 2007. While there, she set a world record for females over the course of 4 spacewalks, spending 29 hours and 17 minutes outside of the station. Her second flight was Expedition 3233, yes, in July to November of 2012, where she was launched from Kazakhstan, from Baikonur, and joined with the Russian Soyuz commander Yuri Malenchenko and flight engineer Akihiko Hoshide of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, where she spent 4 months conducting research and exploration aboard the orbiting laboratory. During this expedition, Ms. Williams performed 3 spacewalks, and she has spent a total of 322 days in space, almost a year in space, on 2 missions. She ranks 6th on the all-time U.S. endurance list, meaning she's number 6 out of all astronauts of all time in terms of how much time she has spent in space, and 2nd all-time for females. And while in space, not only did she perform all of her duties, she also ran the Boston Marathon, which she'll tell us a little bit about, which is just fantastic. And she completed the marathon in 4 hours, 23 minutes, and 10 seconds. The first time an entrant has competed in the race from orbit. So, please help me in welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and thanks for everybody who's coming. And gosh, I'm sorry we're a little bit squishy, but I'm a little overwhelmed by how many people are here, but thank you so much. I'm from Boston. It's one of the reasons I ran the Boston Marathon. I grew up sort of right at the halfway point. So I've mentioned that because I speak a little fast. So I'm sorry about that, and I'll try to keep it slower, but people from New England, if you're familiar in that area of the United States, we speak a little bit fast. Sometimes we don't speak so clearly. We slur our R's a little bit. You might have heard "pak the ka" and "Harvard Yard," which is sort of a statement, a funny statement from our part of the country. So if you don't understand me, please raise your hand and say, "What did you say?" It's because of my funny accent. I've lived in Texas now, for about 15 years, but I don't sound like a Texan at all. That's a whole nother accent, and you're probably lucky you're not listening to that right now. But anyway, like we were talking about, I've been lucky enough to go to space 2 times, both to the International Space Station, but both times, first time on a space shuttle and back on a space shuttle, and the second time up on a Russian Soyuz rocket, a Russian Soyuz spacecraft, and then back, of course, on that same spacecraft. I've been very, very lucky. I've been there, like I said, at NASA, working for NASA for about 15 years. And previously, you know, folks have rotated up to space quite a bit because on the shuttle we flew 7 people at a time. But now we only fly 3 people on each Soyuz. But we're getting a higher rotation rate. We have 4 Soyuz that go up every year, 2 in the fall, and then 2, and then they come down 1 at a time, and then 2 in the spring, and they get replaced. And so there's periods where there's only 3 people on the space station, if you can understand that little rotation process. Also, while we're on the space station, it's now complete. Now it's this huge orbiting laboratory, international laboratory. We have, of course, an American laboratory, a Russian laboratory, Japanese laboratory, a European laboratory, and a Canadian arm, which was their big contribution. But we have experiments and racks from all over the world. A whole bunch of different countries are contributing now that this huge laboratory is built and flying. I mention all of that because it's a proud thing, because it is a proud thing. It's just been in the last couple years that it's been complete. It took almost a decade to build this space station. And you'll see what it sort of looks like, and if you can imagine, none of these pieces and parts were ever put together on the ground. Every piece was made in most every piece was made from a different country. We shared a lot of engineering ideas and capabilities so that all these pieces magically fit together up in space. I think some of us who started out in the beginning of this program had some doubts whether or not the first couple pieces were going to fit together, but they actually do, and they have stayed together. Our first piece was launched from Kazakhstan in 1998, and that's called the FGB, sort of the core block. It right now is essentially a closet, but it had its own solar rays, its own power, and launched autonomously. The other Russian piece, the service module, main Russian piece, the service module, also launched autonomously and docked. And then there was all the U.S. pieces, USOS we call it, U.S. operating system pieces. They're round because they fit in the cargo bay of the space shuttle. They all went up on the space shuttle, and then we used the robotic arm to connect all these pieces and parts together. And if you can imagine, so I said the first piece went up in 1998. The first people started living on the space station in 2000. And so that's only 2 years, which means the space station wasn't all complete. So what do you need to have people live there? You need a toilet, of course. You need some place to make food. You need some oxygen. And you need carbon dioxide removal. And you need a solar ray. And so that's essentially all it was just a couple modules, 3 modules with a big solar ray. And that's when the first people started living there. And then we had crews change out essentially every 6 months for the next 10 years as space shuttles were coming up and adding pieces, bringing pieces up. And then we're using the robotic arm, the Canadian robotic arm, to move all these pieces around and put them in the right order. An American toy, which you might have heard of as Mr. Potato Head. I sort of called the space station Mr. Potato Head because, you know, we had a solar array that was on the top, and eventually it had to move out to the side. And so in the meantime, pieces and parts were being moved all around. And like I said earlier, this is one of the reasons I couldn't even believe it was really going to be completed. When I started was in 1998, and I couldn't believe that we were actually going to get this thing all arranged. So it's quite an engineering marvel, and it's been my life for the last 15 years. So one of the things you guys are probably wondering about, what's it like? What is a typical expedition like? What are all these countries spending all this money for and time? So I'm going to show you a little bit, a real condensed version of I call it my vacation from Earth for 4 months in 2012, just a little bit over a year ago from when we came back. So like I said, you'll see a couple groups of 6 because we switch out crews, because 3 go up on a Soyuz, 3 are there, 3 go up on a Soyuz, and those first 3 come home, and another group comes back. So you see a couple different crews that we're with, and that's why I look like a NASCAR guy here, because I was part of Expedition 32 and Expedition 33. And this is our Soyuz patch, of course. So we have all these funny patches on our flight suits.
really have these technical difficulties all the time.
We have a lot of technical difficulties on the station too. It's a little bit of a hodgepodge up there.